Hello everyone, Jason Mitchell here, and like everybody, you get asked the question, how on earth did we get to this interest rate environment, and why is housing just all of a sudden at a standstill? And there's basis to why we are where we are. And a lot of people are concerned that we're going back to 2008 and the crash and everything else like that. And the first thing I want to say, there's a lot to unpeel here. But the first thing I want to say is that what makes this different, this standstill that we're getting into right now, versus what happened in 2008, was in 2008, it was a complete market crash, and it was market driven by providing bad loans and bad products to borrowers that couldn't afford them. Today's slowdown is man-made. And what's interesting about the slowdown we have right now with the Fed having their hand on the dial and wanting to, I can turn it up, I can turn it down, I can turn it up, I can turn it down. But the real basis why we are where we are today goes back to COVID. You see, when we had COVID, we were shutting down businesses. Our politicians shut down the ability for people to earn money, earn a living. And then what they did is said, hey, we're doing this for your health and safety, but we know we're putting you out of business, or we know that you can't work. So we're going to print trillions of dollars and give it to everybody as our way to say, sorry, this is going on. And when you print that kind of money and you give people access to that kind of money, and then you don't allow people to have to pay their rents, and then you don't foreclose on people, and all these things in between, there's an abundance of capital. And that abundance of capital and the capital that they printed to throw out to the economy led to the highest inflation rates that we've seen in decades. The turn in the market that we've seen, I mean, you got to think about it. Back in February and March, you couldn't put a buyer into a home, and today you can't get a buyer to want to buy a home. Yet the prices are 15% lower today than they were 6 months ago, so why? And you say, well, it's because of interest rates. Okay, exactly. The Fed put a pause on everything. What the Fed said is that housing prices are getting too out of control right now. People will not be able to afford a home in the future if housing prices continue to go this high. But the root of that problem came all from COVID, because you printed all this capital. And in addition to that, we didn't need a crazy low interest rate environment during COVID. I still don't understand the necessity of that, but all that did was gear people up who, at that time, 2020, things were going so well. People had money, they had credit, they had equity, they had all these things playing in their favor to say, you're going to give me a 2.5% interest rate, I'm going to go buy a second home. You're going to give me a 3% interest rate, I'm going to go get an investment property. I'm going to actually sell my home for top dollar and go buy a property that I've been dreaming to buy because my payment's so low. Hell, I did that. So we created this artificially low interest rate environment, which got housing through the roof. Then we couldn't put middle-class Americans and first-time home buyers and VA and everybody else into a home because there's 20 people bidding on each property. And now today, they still can't buy a home even though they could actually get it under contract. It's not affordable. Housing prices all-time high, rates at all-time high since 1994. Can't even buy now. So these politicians have put the people that need home ownership the most in a horrible position. And they know it. So now they're turning up the dial, taking housing, slowing it down to where everybody can take a breath, but we need to have better home affordability within this country. But my point is this, it never needed to be done in the first place. We didn't need to shut every business in the world, in the country down. That was ignorant. And I think we saw that was ignorant because now when you look at the statistics, Florida couldn't have had it more right. And I'm not trying to play political sides here, so don't get me wrong. But the point is, you shut people out of work, you printed trillions of dollars, you then artificially lowered interest rates, things are going to boom. And then all of a sudden you turn around and say, well, they're booming too much, we got to get a handle on this, let's just slow everything down and let's do it now. Just, you want to hit the brake hard. Case-Shiller just came out a couple days ago and said that the adjustment of the buyers to sellers market was the sharpest adjustment they've ever recorded on file. So what the Fed is looking to do, they're accomplishing it. But what gives me hope about what's going on right now is that it is by the dial. And so I look at the slowdown in real estate today, interest rate driven, of course, but it's man-made. And so if the dial wasn't turned up like they wanted to do and how they have done it, things could have continued. What I don't like what they did is you artificially lower it and then you artificially raise it. And now all of a sudden, where we could have just had steady market growth and allow the market to be the market, you're manipulating it. But where I have hope is, I don't think this is going to last too long. I don't. What I see, personally, is I see us going into recession, end of Q1, Q2 of next year. Then we'll look to ease back down interest rates. Prices will have leveled. Rates will get back to 5.5%, give or take. And now we're going to finally meet at some point next year where sellers have an idea of really what their home is worth, and you have buyers that are still wanting to buy because interest rates are in a decent interest rate environment. And everything will kind of go back to the status quo. But what's going to be nice about our business is we're weeding out a lot of real estate agents, loan officers that simply were taking advantage of the heyday. And a lot of great organizations are going to take this next year or 8 months or whatever it is, and they're going to retool and they're going to get better. And you always come out of this stuff better as long as you stick with it. So I don't think this is going to be a really long-lived scenario, certainly not like 2008. That was market-driven. This is truly man-driven, man-made driven by the Fed. I am optimistic about housing still. We still, from an inventory perspective, we're fine. We still need to build houses. I mean, the good part is, even though people are losing equity right now on the decline, there was a lot of equity out there. I believe the number I saw that the average American was at 63% LTV. So even if we lose 15%, they're still in a great spot where they can sell without being upside down. And a lot of people are in a good interest rate right now. So once we get past the midterms, we go in the next year, I see recession looming, rates coming back down, things coming back to normal. But I just don't like the way we gone about it, because it really stems from COVID. It comes from shutting everything down in the country and then trying to make up for it by printing your way out of it. Eventually that catches up with you. And here we are. So hang on tight. I think this will be short-lived, but that's why we are where we are.